the name of the presentation over here is how Microsoft Azure enables the enterprise blockchain. So I'll give you just a really quick overview into what it is that Envision Blockchain Solution does. So Envision Blockchain Solutions is a Microsoft partner, and we really focus on two specific traits: blockchain adoption and organizational transformation. And one of the key points with the blockchain adoption is that if you take a look on a global scale, blockchain in the U.S. is so far less adopted than some of the other countries like Asia or Europe or anything like that. And there's a lot of the reasons why, but one of our missions is really to lead by education and to help understand what blockchain can do and how it can actually transform your organization. So with that in mind, I'm just going to spend just a couple seconds over here explaining some of the services. I'm not going to spend too much on this slide because, again, I'm going to be able to send you the PowerPoint presentation afterwards. So we provide Envision Blockchain Immersion Labs. This is essentially where it's a full-day course to help you understand what blockchain is, what blockchain can do, and we have a number of different use cases and demos for you to actually put your hands on some of this technology and see some of it in action. The whole point of this is to really spur up some thoughts and create an aha moment how it can work for your organization. Blockchain use case workshops is, the blockchain isn't this silver bullet that's going to solve every single issue within your business. However, blockchain can help specific use cases, and what we do is we discuss with your stakeholders involved what are the different use cases within your organization that blockchain will really be able to provide some impact. Blockchain and IoT solution deployments. So this is not just configuring the different layers and technology stacks within a blockchain solution, but also connecting it to various IoT solutions, devices, some that could read temperature, some that can perform other actions, so that you can take this data input, which is happening out in the real world, and implement that into your business processes. Blockchain training could span anywhere from teaching your internal development team on how that they can write smart contracts, create blockchain technology, and also how to maintain the blockchain solution once something's been implemented. Blockchain and IoT integration, I think, is going to be the key part to really adopting blockchain technology in the future, because blockchain technology kind of helps out on that specific front. However, the key is integrating it with some of your legacy systems, whether it's ERP solutions, business process management solutions, financial solutions, and really automating the workflow and the integration between all those systems, because as we're going to mention a little bit later, that the data that's coming from that blockchain ledger is the truth. It is the immutable data, and we'll explain that more. And obviously, blockchain and IoT reporting. Everybody loves to see their dashboards. They love to get their click-throughs and like to see the different colors and the metrics, and this is how we all report on different KPI metrics. So this is all the different points that we help with. Going through to the agenda today. So really quickly, we're going to be providing a quick introduction into blockchain technology. We're going to provide an introduction into Microsoft Azure and what is the Microsoft vision for providing these enterprise requirements, both functional and technical, to really adopt this on a larger scale. And then on top of that, we're also going to be providing a demo for one of the use cases that we developed for supply chain and transportation, and I'm going to kick that off to Jason at that time. All right, so really quickly, quick introduction to blockchain technology. Gartner released a report not too long ago basically stating that the business value add of blockchain will grow slightly more than $176 billion by 2025, and then it's going to exceed $3.1 trillion by 2030. And the value add-on that they're talking about is not just internal, it's also external. So by adding blockchain solutions into the solutions that you're running your business on, and we can take a look at business strategy and all the different pillars included with your digital strategy. It's not just it's not just internal. It also talks about how you deal with customers, how you deal with vendors, how you deal with onboarding, how you deal with all the different facets within your organization. And by adding this kind of technology, will definitely help this all the different value chains and value streams down the road. So the evolution of IT, and I think it's really important for us to discuss, not just where we are today, but how we got there. And this is going to explain that every so often there's this new shift going on. So at the very beginning, right, we started with the mainframe computers really in the early 1960s, late 1950s. And the mainframe computers, what they enabled is that, you can have these servers that are feeding these computers that are not really self-sufficient. They don't provide too many apps within them. But one server, what they would call a mainframe, would really, work and help to feed. It could be, thousands of different remote terminals that are connected to there. The next evolution, what happened in the early 80s, is the invent of the personal computers, right? So with the personal computers, now you had the ability to have your own apps and have your own business applications within a personal computer, and you don't need to be tied down to any particular mainframe or terminal. Word processors and spreadsheets and so on and so forth. Then what happened, not too late afterwards, so then businesses decided, we're going to have kind of the mixture of the two. We're going to have this client-server application, which is going to, you can still run on the apps that you're currently running on. However, you're also going to be able to tap into what we vet out as a business as the enterprise solution to run your businesses. Okay. Then what happened shortly after that is now we got to the enterprise solution. The enterprise solution, really in the 2000s, what that provided is, you kind of have now a mixture of everything, but now you can connect that to the World Wide Web, and this is where you get your server applications together with your web apps. And this is seen with a lot of these applications that we're using today. The list can go on with all them. And then what happened most recently is we all said, well, the servers are good, the servers cost money, the servers need a lot of maintaining. What we could do is we can run the same applications and we can all put it into a hosted cloud solution. And I'm willing to bet that the majority of the people on this call right now are familiar with the cloud, but this wasn't the case 10 years ago. This wasn't even the case 5 years ago, maybe not even 2 years ago, but rapidly cloud is really taking over. And now what we're seeing is that IT is shifting all over again. That what we're seeing is this whole cloud and enterprise server technology. Now it's moving into this decentralization. So on the left you see the cloud picture that we had before. On the right, this is our decentralized ledger that we're going to get into. So taking it one step deeper, we're just going to keep on peeling this onion back over here. So this distributed ledger technology, this is what they call the distributed ledger technology, right? So this distributed ledger is one thing, decentralized distributed ledger, but the technology behind that is this kind of model that allows for all the applications that we'll be talking about and everything that you're hearing. So distributed ledger technology is really three major components. It's your data model. It's the data that you're capturing within the decentralized ledger. It's your language of transactions. How are we making these transactions happen? And it's also the protocol that we'll talk about also. And the protocol could be how are we going to agree that these transactions are valid and how are we actually going to write them into our data model using our language of transactions. So again, we're going to get into this question on what is blockchains. So blockchain is this decentralized ledger that we discussed. And just by the name blockchain, it's a chronological chain of blocks, right? This is how they came up with the name blockchain. So what happens is that as their data is being written, the transaction metadata and the timestamp and the block reference, they're all being linked to each other. And there's common, there's common metadata across all blockchains. I'm not going to say that this is standardized because, if you talk to different organizations, everyone uses different terminology. This is the state that we're at right now where there's not too much standardization. However, there's typical that you'll see a reference to the previous block, and we'll explain in the next couple slides why that's important. There's going to be, a timestamp. There's going to be some metadata on this transaction, and we're going to explain how that all is actually going to work together. So again, just kind of taking you through the example of what is the blockchain, and I'm going to use the same pictures so that we kind of keep the same images in mind. So as the blocks are being written, everybody within the network that we're connecting to, and we'll get onto the different types of networks in the next couple slides, they're all going to get the same block information at the same time. So everyone has the same information, and that's going to be one of the key pieces. And when we talk about some of the key pieces and why blockchain is so important, there's so many reasons as to why you would want to implement blockchain technology for specific use cases. Arguably, one of the most compelling reasons to implement blockchain technology is the immutability of data. So once something has been written to that blockchain, to that decentralized ledger or that database, however we want to describe it, that data cannot be changed. Well, let me change that. It's not that it cannot be changed. The probability of changing that is very unlikely, and I'm going to explain why in the next slide. But you'll see that there are many different use cases across many different verticals why you would want to keep the immutability of the data, from accounting to financials to identity and asset management. So we're going to explore some of the use cases throughout this webinar, with supply chain being the one that we're going to focus on as far as the demo is concerned. So why did I say that the data, it's very difficult to change? Well, remember that we had this chain of blockchain metadata and all the transactions that are happening. So in order for you to be able to change that immutability of the data, you would first need to change the first block. And there could be hundreds and thousands of blocks within the chain. In order for you to change the first block, you would need to be able to provide an exceptional amount of computational power in order to change that. But what's so interesting about this, since part of the metadata included with these blockchains is the block reference, you can easily point out when some block has been tampered with. And in order for you to, let's say, we have 4 blocks on the screen right here. If you're trying to get the information of block number 1, in order to do that, you would literally need to change every single block before that and every single block after that, just in order to kind of get away from that. And nothing like no technology so far has been able to prove that that kind of computational power has existed. That's why I'm not going to say that it's 100% not going to exist. Just at the current time, it's very improbable, is what they like to say. So let's kind of dig into this just one step further, and kind of what's going on right now, like between the decentralized databases versus blockchains. And the biggest reason is that right now we're all operating on these central databases. So whatever information that you have, whether it's a SQL Server database or it's some other database, there's one point of failure. There's one point of access. And there's typically someone that's controlling whether you have the rights to read or write or change any of that data within that database. So what blockchain aims to do, it's a write-only data structure. So you can write information to it, but again, like we mentioned, you're not going to be able to you're not going to be able to change that data. So again, just kind of putting the full picture into it, we came from the picture on the left, and that being the central database, as you can see those servers, to that being the blockchain on the right. So again, kind of taking it one step further, we'll talk about the different types of blockchains. And there's public blockchains and private blockchains, or they are sometimes called permissionless blockchains or permission blockchains. When you're going to be thinking about the public blockchains, that's when we're going to be looking at the Bitcoin blockchain or the public Ethereum blockchain or any of those blockchains that you don't need permission to enter. All you have to do, download the wallet, you have access to that ledger. It's called permissionless. The private permissioned network is where you can only join that network if you have access to it. So there's not the right answer as to which blockchain is right for your business. There's many use cases why you would want a public chain. There's many uses why you'd want a private chain. And again, during our use case assessments, that's some of the discovery that we uncover. So how do you interact with the blockchain? Again, going back to this decentralized ledger that we were showing before, is that you have this network of computers, or you can call them nodes, that are kind of standing up the network of the blockchain. And on top of that are very simple, it's just applications. That's all it is. And the way that you develop these applications is that you interact them with smart contracts. Smart contracts you probably have heard about, but I'm going to break what the components of smart contracts are. We're going to try to keep it simple again. A smart contract is literally code that's written. You can create your code in many different ways, and they're basically if-then statements. If this happens, then that happens. And if that happens, then this happens. It's basically automated events and automated triggering workflows that simulates a contractual agreement between one party, two parties, multiple parties. They all interact with each other. When certain events happen, that's when you get transactions that happen on that blockchain network. When that blockchain network captures the transactions, that transaction metadata is then written to all the blocks, just like we showed you before, and then is distributed to all the different nodes or computers within that network. Now, the question is, how do we control what data is written onto the blockchain? And the answer to that is consensus algorithms. So within that blockchain network, you can choose which consensus algorithms really fit the needs of your business. Again, and there's so many different consensus algorithms that exist, and they're all part of different blockchains. And that's one of the reasons why Envision Blockchain Solutions took a blockchain agnostic framework approach, because we don't want to just corner one particular organization to use one particular blockchain that may only have one particular type of consensus algorithm. So again, there's more than one that might fit the bill. So again, the consensus algorithm, what it does is it's written into the code, it's written into the smart contract, and when a transaction happens, all the participants of the network, all participants of the code, they kind of check each other to make sure that everyone has the same code, nothing's been tampered with. Once everything has been proved that they agree, we're all running the same code, all the code is the right versioning, so on and so forth, we now agree that this transaction happened, and it's completely filled out, and it's really the transaction metadata that we want. Once everyone agrees on it, all that transaction metadata now gets written to that blockchain at the same time. So again, that's just a really quick introduction into what blockchain is, how blockchain actually, how you can control it, how you interact with it. And what's kind of important to kind of think about on some of the next steps is, okay, well, I get blockchain. I get it. I know it can help out. We want to use it. Who has it? How do we get it started? And Microsoft Azure really decided to take a firm stance in the blockchain space by not really developing a Microsoft blockchain. What they said is, let's give businesses a platform that they can leverage blockchain technology on. And since we're already really capable of providing enterprise-level cloud technology, it makes sense to provide blockchain technology platforms at the same time. So, as a quote right here says that every single company we talk to is looking at how to apply blockchain to various areas. And if you haven't heard of Azure yet, not many. I'm not going to say not many organizations that we deal with haven't heard of it, but more companies are familiar with Office 365. Certain areas, maybe more IT departments, are a little bit more aware of what Microsoft Azure is, and it's your set of on-demand cloud offerings. You literally, it's like a taxi. It's like if you want a couple virtual machines, if you want a couple applications, but you don't want to use them full time, and you just want to use them for a particular project, or you want them going indefinitely, but you want to be able to expand or contract how many the server power given your network, you can have this on-demand cloud offering, and it's like a taxi. The more you use it, the more you pay. And just to kind of show you, the types of businesses that are currently leveraging Microsoft Azure. Again, you could just go into the Microsoft website and check it out. Over 90% of the Fortune 500 companies are leveraging all of the Microsoft Cloud offerings. So one thing to consider is, is anyone using blockchain yet? Is anyone using Microsoft Blockchain and Azure? And the answer is yes. There have been early adopters that have decided that they want to start running proof of concepts, pilots. Some have gone into production zones. So please, we really recommend before you toss the idea of blockchain out, and probably if you're still here, then hats off, you haven't left me yet. That's great. That means that you may be interested in blockchain technology. Just take a look into some of the case studies that Microsoft has worked with their partners like Envision Blockchain and together with companies to help implement this blockchain technology. So something that we hear very often is, what are the enterprise requirements? The first one is enterprise needs scalability. We need to be able to add members, take members away. We need to be able to have low latency. Transactions need to happen as fast as business happens. And on top of that, we need to have this confidentiality of data. So we may not want all the information to be seen for everyone in the world. And another one is we need to be able to govern and manage. We need to set governance rules on who can enter, who can't enter, what needs to happen, when it needs to happen. And for that, Microsoft said, well, you know what, we're going to come up with two solutions for the marketplace. We're going to come up with Microsoft Azure Blockchain as a Service, the BaaS model, or we're going to come up with this Microsoft Azure Blockchain Workbench. And for purposes of this demonstration and for purposes of this conversation, we're going to talk about this Azure Blockchain Workbench. And what the Azure Blockchain Workbench is, it's this collection of Azure services and capabilities really to help you deploy your blockchain application really quickly, get you up and running fast so that you can start to, share your processes and data with the businesses that you want to start to work with leveraging this blockchain technology. What does the Workbench provide? So the old way is that you would have to piece together different applications of infrastructure. Now you could just click, launch it, and have this pre-configured Azure resource group. You can build web apps. So the old way was you build web apps, you have APIs, and now the new way is, all this Workbench comes with all your web apps and APIs. As long as you have the knowledge internal on what to do with this web app and what to do with this APIs, you're good to go. You used to have to spend tedious time integrating with legacy systems. Workbench leverages Service Bus, Azure Service Bus, and Azure Event Grid to really send these messages to all series of legacy systems that are already part of not only the Microsoft cloud offerings, but also what else is out there too. And we'll showcase that. Identities are represented by an address. So I don't know if you've ever dealt with cryptocurrencies in the past, but there's always this wallet address, right? So what Microsoft said is, well, instead of dealing with zeros and X's and ones and everything else, we're just going to have identities represented by Azure Active Directory. However you sign in with your Microsoft account, you get your Azure Active Directory, and behind that is your address. And then, of course, you have to piece together a database in the old way of configuring blockchain. But now you have Workbench that out of the box syncs together with SQL Server to provide on-chain blockchain data synced already to off-chain storage capacities. So the basic architecture, I'm not going to go too far into this, but it leverages Azure Active Directory for the identification and authentication. You have client applications already pre-configured as long as you have internal resources that can configure the UI for you. You already have that out there. You have a gateway service API, so you have APIs that allow you to use REST-based APIs to communicate with not just the Workbench that we'll showcase in just 2 minutes, but also you can develop your own user interface and have that for your own needs too. Message brokers, again, any event that happens within your blockchain network, you're going to be able to send that off and integrate to other different types of solutions and services. Transaction routers and ledgers, so it comes pre-configured with virtual machines. Azure Key Vault, so you can now keep track of your private keys, and only those private keys have the information behind it. And as of right now, it comes pre-configured with a private Ethereum ledger. So there's other ledgers, there's other private blockchains that Microsoft has on the roadmap. Right now, out of the box, there's the Ethereum Proof of Authority blockchain. Out of the box, it's already synced together with your SQL Server and also your Azure storage for any of the other needs that you have to store the data. And on top of that, you have the Azure Monitor, Azure Event Grid, IoT Hub, and Logic apps. This is all part of your grid that I'll show you in the next screen. Once you deploy the Workbench, once it's been configured and you deploy it, you have this pre-configured resource group of all your enterprise apps that you have. So again, just talking about the integration and solutions, here's just a little video showing you this Logic apps. And you could see that really out of the box, as long as you have the right internal personnel that can configure the integration solution that you could use and integrate the blockchain data to whatever solutions and systems that you're using right now. You see that we have SAP out of the box and some of the other ones. So this gives you everything that you need from an enterprise perspective with enterprise-grade tools to launch your blockchain and make it private and create your own type of proof of concept and blockchain application for your specific use case. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this on to Jason Panzis. He is another co-founder of Envision Blockchain Solutions, and he's going to break down the demo for supply chain and ocean freight transportation logistics.
Thanks, Dan. I think that was an awesome and great comprehensive review of an intro to what is blockchain. And what I'm going to show you here is just a little bit about how Microsoft Azure, after you have a Workbench deployment, how we can begin running these blockchain applications. I personally have a background in supply chain and logistics, so I'm going to try my hardest not to get too hung up on the minor details. But just a quick review. We have POCs that are developed or in development for several other industries and different verticals. Supply chain happens to be a horizontal that covers a lot of different verticals. So it's a very difficult and challenging use case, which is why the world is kind of stuck on it. We also, have had some experience in the insurance sector. Healthcare is a very interesting one. Of course, by default, finance is a very popular one, seeing as though cryptocurrencies were of the first blockchain use case. So just moving forward, and to keep this going, I know that some people may have some questions. We're just going to kind of get a quick start into a little bit about the background here. And as Dan was saying, we started the tour this webinar in the late 50s, early 60s with framework with computer frames before the PC. And what we see here today is some of the technology that has been lagging, so to speak, let's say in the supply chain sector specific to ocean freight. So we're gonna talk in this slide just a little bit about cross-border payments, and how blockchain helps overcome those barriers. Likewise, the automated process flow workflows that are happening now as a result of smart contracts within blockchain technology. Something to keep in mind is that we already have automated process workflows, but these automated process workflows with smart contracts are happening in a decentralized fashion and being recorded on the decentralized ledger, which is a major happening and major upgrade to technology. Of course, documentation is a big deal. We all know that email has helped out a lot in moving mail around the world in an expedited, instantaneous fashion, some of which is secure, some of which may not be so secure, and we also have to constantly overcome the challenge of, keeping documentation up to date. And with regards to communication, yes, we just discussed email, and yes, we have phones, different things like that. But the bottom line is that how do we reduce communication in order to help drive efficiency within business processes? Within this demo, we're not going to really talk too much about cross-border payments because every single business is going to have a different situation with regard to, let's say, the way that they're going to be paying vendors or different suppliers, different things like that, and the way that they have their banking situation set up vary from business to business. For the sake of ocean freight, some organizations, today still send original bill of ladings, and some rely on letters of credit to release release cross-border payments and different things like that. So for the sake of this demo, we kind of left out cross-border payments, but just because that veers kind of into the financial sector of the blockchain POC. Let's talk about the bill of lading. We were talking about documentation before. We were talking about communication. We were talking about the reliability of email. We were talking about how can we reduce communication and how can we keep everybody on the same page at the same time. That's something that blockchain technology and distributed ledger technology has really come about and has helped businesses see a new dawn of day here, realistically. In the supply chain sector, we're kind of stuck on, sending original bill of ladings by mail in order to clear a shipment. A bill of lading, for the sake of understanding what we're talking about here, is really the declaration of a shipment. It proves ownership. If we take a look at this document here on the right part of the screen here, that's like one of the original bill of ladings, and it's half printed, half handwritten. And that could have happened in the 50s or 60s, and today we're in in the early 2000s, 2018 here, and we're now sending emails or still sending mail with these documents in order to help release shipments, which is a really interesting thing. And a lot of agents overseas at different ports basically wind up having the ability to get documents confused as to what's up to date, whether something's actually cleared, and as a result, there's different fraudulent activity that exists and potential delays which cost businesses different money. As of 2 weeks ago, we actually got news that one of the first smart contract bill of ladings in existence were deployed and successfully used and helped reduce the average cost of the clearance with regard to that bill of lading by 85%. The average cost of the bill of lading transfer is about $100 by mail, and in this specific case, all in all, I think per the news, it came out to be about $15, which is an incredible savings for business, especially if you have hundreds of shipments on a weekly basis, which many organizations in the supply sector do. Likewise, let's not even focus specifically on ocean freight here. Even within inland transportation, regarding railroads or regarding air freight or regarding trucking, everybody's using these bill of ladings and keeping these hard copies. So we can talk about the security of how the bill of lading was transferred using this smart contract. So as Dan had mentioned previously, this decentralized ledger is of course encrypted, and this transaction remains secure behind this encryption, and of course You know, you can set permissions within a permission blockchain as to who can view and who can see this document, and of course everything is specifically timestamped. Of course, the speed of the actual transaction is instantaneous. The second ocean freight carrier or a shipper releases the permissions of access to that specific document, it's an instantaneous transaction, and of course remains secure. This digital bill of lading, you know, is of course here to replace paper. It's here to replace, you know, standard traditional mail and, of course, email, which, as we discussed earlier, has potential fraud attached to it. And as we just previously discussed, we saw an 85% savings just in this bill of lading process alone. So that's very impressive information, and I hope that moving forward, you know, when you see this proof of concept, you can begin using your imagination as to how you can implement these specific processes within your own business in order to help create that efficiency that blockchain is now making readily available for everybody. So let's talk about the bill of lading process just to help clear everything up for everybody. We have a shipment at port A, which is right here on the left, and the objective is, of course, to ship this cargo to port B. So we see here that the shipment makes its voyage, and when it arrives, as the shipment makes its voyage, we need to, the agent at port B will need to make payment on that shipment prior to the agent at port A to release that bill of lading. The reason is the shipper at port A is interested in getting paid for their services or potentially that commodity, and is not interested in releasing the bill of lading, which is the evidence and proof of ownership of that shipment, to the second party at port B until they receive payment. And like I had mentioned, that could be done via a letter of credit, which, you know, dives into a little bit more of the financial end or sector of cross-border payments, or it can be done theoretically through cryptocurrency payment. It can be done a number of different ways, but the bottom line is that transfer of bill of lading should be secure, it should be safe, and it should be done in an expedited manner. So obviously once that shipment lands and the bill of lading is transferred, we obviously look to make this clearance happen, and that's where we wind up. That's how blockchain is helping to solve this bill of lading process by basically eliminating telex release or eliminating any sort of email communication, which expedites, secures, and eliminates any potential fraudulent activity within this transaction. So just moving forward, we're gonna now dive into a little bit about this supply chain use case, which we developed. Envision Blockchain Solutions developed using the Azure Workbench. All right, so here we go. So essentially what we're going to do here is on the top left, obviously this is our organization, this is our environment. If I were to click here, it would show you all the different applications that we already have running within this environment. These are all the contracts here that are previously deployed. We can just go in, you can click, you can take a look at some different contracts. I'm just going to go back for the sake of this demo. In the upper right-hand corner here, you're going to notice that we have these 7 members. And you say, oh, that's funny. Jason Pansis seems to be in control of all 7. That's obviously for the sake of this demo so that we don't have to go back and forth between different users. Now, I want to put everybody in the mindset this is an enterprise application, and that there's going to be different users that are going to be in different businesses participating in different parts of the world. So theoretically, we can assign, you know, Jason Pansis to be the shipper, and somebody else can be an origin customs agent, and somebody else can be a freight carrier, and somebody else can be a destination customs agent, so on and so forth. So the important thing here to remember is that Microsoft Azure's Workbench allows you to select these users straight from the Azure Active Directory, and that's a huge plus. That's a huge plus when designing a POC and getting everything set up and organized, especially looking at this from a visual standpoint. So in this POC, what we're going to do is we're going to start this new contract, okay, and we're gonna make this, you know, New York to London. And here, what we're going to say here is, obviously I'm set up to be the freight carrier, but for all intents and purposes, it could be a FedEx, it could be a UPS, or if it's an ocean freight carrier, it can be a Maersk, or it can be an Evergreen. In this specific case, obviously we're going to select myself. Because it's originating out of New York, we're going to select the U.S. customs agent, which is myself. And of course, we're sending it to London, and I happen to be the consignee as well, so that we don't have to switch all screens back and forth. But the individual in London would, of course, appreciate knowing where his shipment is and different things that are going on at different phases of the life of this shipment. One thing I'd like to point out is that within this POC, because all of the members are all myself, you're going to have access to see all of the details of this contract. And in reality, in the event that you're an enterprise organization, we can have it so that only certain individuals can see certain pieces of information and at different times. I don't want anybody to think that the blockchain is technology, especially hosted on Microsoft Azure's Workbench, where everybody can see anything at any given point in time. That's completely false, and I just wanted to make it perfectly clear that this information is encrypted, and provided you have the appropriate permissions and of course the appropriate settings, that an individual can see different information at different points in time. So a brief overview here. So we've entered this contract 55, and we're going from New York to London. So if we take a look here, there's going to be 12 states or 11 states in this POC. So there's going to be 11 different transactions from start to finish. And you can see here who the action is going to be on. Of course, here you can see what activities are taking place, and you can click and you can see what state the contract is currently in. You can see the contract is New York to London, the date, the time it initiated, a block number, the address that initiated it, and of course the transaction ID, so you can further prove that the transaction happened. Likewise, you can see all the details of the contract, which, by the way, once again, in a normal enterprise layout, you wouldn't be able to see everything that's going on. It's only in this specific circumstance so that everybody can see here. So let's begin by taking action. And what we're going to do is we're going to begin the export clearance. We have the shipment, it's now at the port, and we need to request customs to take a look at the shipment and obviously make sure that everything is all set and they have an understanding of where the shipment is going and specific detailed instructions that I'm putting in right here. So we just put in AES filing, and that's basically the number that we're requesting. We're looking to get some import documentation. And at this point in time, what's happening is we have the blockchain in the background that's processing this specific transaction. And in reality, a U.S. customs broker that's already part of this system would be receiving an email alert saying, hey, Jason Pantsis just called for an export clearance. The action is on you. Please make sure that you can go ahead and authorize this specific transaction and give him the document back. And he obviously has to go and review the file. He can ask us to, of course, amend the documentation, approve the documentation, or, of course, reject it. In this specific case, for time's sake, we're going to go and approve the documentation. And as you can see, what's happening here is we have these automated work process flows by these smart contracts that are being registered and of course approved and written to the blockchain for all of the parties to see. At this point in time, you can see that the description is from New York to London, that I'm the shipper, I'm also the freight carrier, the origin customs, and everything else has been selected. Here's the seller, the port of discharge that we just uploaded to the blockchain, the bank, any export information, so on and so forth. So Origin Customs was kind enough to go ahead and approve the documentation, and we're going to upload some shipping documents. once these are all updated, we're basically going to go and begin asking the ocean freight carrier to review these documents, sign, and permit these documents to basically move forward to help initiate this transfer of the bill of lading coming up and help the process of this ocean freight transportation. So in this specific case, we're going to have the ocean freight carrier upload the final bill of lading. In reality, we can have different IoT devices to do different things. In this specific case, we're just doing this obviously from the PC version. So this is the final bill of lading. And here we go. Final bill of lading is now going to be in our possession, back to the shipper. And the shipper can then make it available for the agent at port B to begin reviewing. And this helps save time, this helps save money, this helps with a lot of different business processes, both from an automation standpoint and a security standpoint, and of course a time-consuming standpoint. So let's transfer the bill of lading to our agent overseas. We're going to assign the destination's customs broker. See, in reality, he wouldn't be able to see any of this information. And of course, the destination customs agent, which is going to be over there in London. So at this point in time, they're going to be notified, and they'll instantaneously have this bill of lading to be able to look at, which is pretty incredible. Without having any phone calls, without any specific emails, the email, of course, of notification is all automated. You could theoretically have that bill of lading transfer to be set up so that it triggers another specific event in basically automating a payment process. That could be a possibility, and that's what we were talking about before with this cross-border payment. So let's go ahead and select a drayage agent. That's going to be the individual who's going to go and pick up the shipment from the port. He's now going to be notified that the shipment is going to be ready, and whatever shipment information is going to be given to him. Then from there, we can begin going and dealing with customs overseas and the destination's customs broker and clearing this shipment so that we can have this shipment delivered. So as you can see here, we're in state 6, and this is all the information so far on the lower left that's been written to the blockchain. And if I were to click any one of these activities, you'd be able to see the time and date and specific action and by who actually made that action. So everything is digitally verified, secured, and of course automated, which provides some instantaneous gratification to these organizations. And I know that we're running just a couple minutes over here, but I appreciate everybody sticking around. If you have any questions, by the way, feel free to ask anything in the chat. So here we go. Here we go. We're in state 6, and we're going to take action here. Oh, let's see. Seems like it hung up. Oh, it just went right at the last minute. State 7. Here we go. So now we're going to send the we sent the bill of lading to customs. We selected the agent to go pick up the shipment. Now we're basically going to ask customs to send the release order, or going to ask them. They're going to either say that they need an amendment on the document. In this specific case, they're going to say, "Hey, there's no inspection. There's nothing like that. We're going to go and send you this release order. Congratulations, the shipment is clear." Happy days. And now the customs broker and the drayage agent are basically awaiting this clearance. They're about to get notified that the clearance took place and that nobody owes any additional money. It makes everybody really happy. We're going to send this delivery order now over to the drayage agent, giving them the instructions as to where to deliver. We're going to deliver this in London. And this is basically one of the last couple steps here. So you can see here that we've just completed the recovery of the shipment. And now we're going to do shipment delivery. So the drayage agent has to go and pick up and send the delivery order to the consignee, meaning here we go. We're going to pick up the shipment from the port, and we need to send the instructions over to the consignee saying, hey, this is the documentation, this is the seal number that's on the container, which also has the container number information. Everything should align, everything should match for security purposes. Please review it when you receive that shipment, and it's going to be an electronic signature at the end here that basically shows, yeah, the consignee agrees that the container wasn't tampered with, the seal was still the same number as when it left the New York port, and it matches the container number. Everything is all good. So here we go. So the consignee can now approve the delivery or reject it, meaning does the container number match the seal? Was anything tampered with? Everything looks good to go. Again, happy days. The consignee is very happy with how everything went. And basically what we just demonstrated was a shipment from New York to London, where the shipment passed from the shipper. It went to, we went from the shipper to the origin customs in the United States asking for the AS filing number, allowing or authorizing that shipment to leave the United States. Once we received that, we sent all that information over to the freight carrier. In this specific case, you could call it whatever you'd like, Maersk, Evergreen, Hapag, Lloyd, Safmarine, whichever organization it might have been, MSC. And of course, the ocean freight carrier approved the bill of lading, sent us the final back over to us, the shipper, and the shipper then released that digital bill of lading to both our agent and customs overseas in London, so that they can arrange the drayage, they can arrange the delivery, and of course arrange for all the customs processes to go through. So I just want to kind of help move things along here. I know that we're just a little over time. But I do encourage you guys to ask any questions. This specific proof of concept was a program that we were able to set up within a matter of a week's time, between a couple of our developers, and essentially due to the ease and use of Microsoft Azure, we were able to deliver this sort of information to you as our audience in a very reasonable time. And I think that the main purpose of today's webinar is to basically show you not only our specific expertise within blockchain, but to of course demonstrate the success rate and the ability for enterprise organizations to utilize Microsoft Azure's Workbench as a very promising and powerful tool in setting up your own use cases for your own businesses and deploying these proof of concepts as quickly as possible. One thing I'd like to make mention, if I know that we're just trying to share one last screen, is that we do have a free 14-day building blocks program as we speak. So if you visit our website, www.envisionblockchain.com, under our solutions section, you'll see that we have this building blocks POC line. It's one of the top lines there. If you just click on that, you can schedule a meeting with us. You can, of course, provide whatever details. And I know at this point in time, everybody here has our email addresses. We welcome, the opportunity to sit with you and your team to go through high-level understandings of our Blockchain 101, or what we call our Envision Labs, where you guys will get to sit and get a feel for Azure, the Workbench deployment, and of course, sit and involve yourself with some different POC applications that we have, including, this one, which we just demonstrated, of course, our insurance POC, some areas in finance as well, and, get a solid feel for blockchain and what it can do for your organization. Likewise, within that, we would like to gather your feedback. We'd like to gather your leadership's opinions, different things like that, so that we can help acquire the right information to help design a proper use case for your business. How do we get not necessarily from A, B, C to D these days, but how do we get from A to D, maybe skipping B or maybe skipping C with the invent of this technology? That's really the question. That's what we're interested in doing, and that's why we're interested in promoting this free POC for the time. And we call this program our building blocks. So we welcome all questions if there is anything here, and of course we look forward to seeing you in our next webinar in just a couple weeks. And if you have any interest in joining us for Building Blocks program, we encourage that. Thank you.